All right, so this is something I've been meaning to do. I meant to do this last week, about a day or two after this discussion happened. But as with the usual PlanetSide 2, lack of motivation to do anything related to it, and I was kind of busy last week. I'm less busy this week until tomorrow. But I thought I would get back around to doing this. So this is a discussion that was held by Camikaze78, a big PlanetSide. I think he's the second biggest PlanetSide, the second biggest relevant PlanetSide 2 content creator for the game. He did a discussion on Nanoweave armor, and he had some people in. We've seen this kind of format before. It's kind of like popping up all over the place. Archie had one of these, a Nanoweave debate, about maybe a year ago or 8 months ago or something. I did a video on that, but some thinking has changed since then, and some of the guys in his discussion didn't necessarily bring that much to talk about in depth because they were all very base, kind of ignorant mindsets and everything and opinions on the game, and a bunch of people. It was a mess, and it was really annoying to do, and I was pissed off the whole time I was doing it because there's so many. I find there's so many players. It's so easy for so many people in this game to be misinformed. And this is the newest thing. This is only a week old, and the discussion has come up a lot more in recent years. I've been Lassie at the fucking well, barking for what is like 3 years now, maybe a little bit more than that. Just trying to get the attention of the community and laying it out. And over time, my thoughts on it have evolved, and you've seen that progression in the videos that I've done on it to where they are now. With my last video being, I think, probably my best video on the subject so far. But one thing that video was a challenge for the people who want to just poo-poo the whole discussion and everything and take the easiest way out possible, and which doesn't help the game at all, and to just make it passive for everyone. So I'm sure at some point, either in his chat or in the discussion here, I'm still kind of fuzzy on everything that happened in this video. It's quite long, but I'm sure that will be brought up at some point. But all of my thoughts, collected thoughts and everything is presented in the Making Nanoweave a Passive video. It's relatively short. It's like 16 minutes. And it's scripted, and it just goes bam, 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 bam on the case why it's not a good idea. So I'm going to probably watch this thing in its entirety. I'm not sure, but this is definitely one that I'm not going to jam up on YouTube in its full entirety. I will take the time to edit this down to the major points. I'm not sure how long it will be, and I'll do my best to try to get the timestamps in the spots where appropriate. So anyway, I'm just going to let the video roll, and as things go, I'm going to interject, pause the video, and talk about some certain things. And in the post, in editing and all that, it'll be a lot more seamless. It's not just going to be me sitting here. Like, I have a lot of videos on the channel that are not edited at all, that are just uploaded reactions that are like 3 and 4 hours of stuff, and I would like to get away from doing that. And this video will kind of be maybe my first attempt to do that. So I'm just going to hit play here and let him go on, and then I'm going to stop and interject when I feel it necessary.
It's all happening. Good on you, dude. Welcome aboard, guys. Today we are discussing the ever-elusive Nanoweave armor. Well, not really elusive. The ever-prevalent Nanoweave armor. The meta suit slot pick in the game. The suit slot that dominates all. Today we are talking about Nanoweave armor. And we're going to be talking about its place in the game. Lex has a pretty in-depth video on Nanoweave. We'll have to give it a look potentially in the stream. We'll see how we go. See how.
All right, so the first thing I want to mention here is that my original 2017 video, Removed Nanoweave, gets mentioned in the chat here from Ground Game. I appreciate the shout out, dude. That video was kind of my first foray into discussing this particular topic, and my thinking has changed on it quite a bit. Not necessarily everything, but I specifically approached that video from the perspective of suit slot inventory type stuff, which is, I think, the most easy, basic way to get into understanding that there may be a problem here. Now, it's the most base way to understand that it's a problem, but when you think critically and move further down the reason why it is actually a problem, you get into a whole bunch of things that are quite a bit more important than just the suit slot inventory, meta or whatever. So that video, it was actually in response to this. I think I'm pretty sure I've unlisted the video, and I've updated the description in it. So if you do still have the link to that video, don't reference that one necessarily anymore. I don't think it's the best representation of the argument at this point. It's kind of outdated again. It is from like 2017, I think. And the first half of it's basically divided into two halves. So the first half of that video is me talking about how the community lacks perspective on things. And when you have perspective from playing other games and understanding other gunplay and on all these other games, you can apply it directly to whatever, like what you're playing in this case, which is PlanetSide 2. And seeing how PlanetSide 2 is basically a ripoff of the Battlefield series, PlanetSide 2 and Battlefield kind of have this weird play where, one is a ripped-off version of the gunplay of one of the entries into the Battlefield series. Like, take, for example, the gunplay in PlanetSide 2 is ripped straight from Bad Company 2, right? And Bad Company 2 is a 12v12, so a 24 max player game on console, and I think it is a 16 versus 16 for 32 max players on PC at the time. So already you're running into problems here. And I've used this argument to explain to people, have you guys ever wondered why when you get into smaller fights, the game feels more organic and natural? It's probably because the gunplay that, is part and alive in the game is designed to be around that scale. The gunplay in PlanetSide 2 was never designed to be used in a game with unlimited populations right off the bat, right? So there's that whole thing. So basically the first half of that Nanoweave video is talking about the correlations and perspective between the games, and it pissed a lot of people off because nobody in the PlanetSide 2 YouTube commenter community ever wants to be challenged on anything. And then the second half really talks about comparing it to the other suit slots and all this other stuff. But essentially, it's an outdated video. The best video that I have is that describes I've broken it down finally but it's about a 10-minute video. It's the 3 main problems with Nanoweave. It's called Nanoweave Revisited. That's the one you should probably look to get into it. It doesn't have any like sugarcoating or basic game info or anything of that. And I talk about that in the video. And then if you want a little bit more and deeper on that, then the Making It a Passive Response video that I have does a little bit better job of diving into addressing how making it passive doesn't address each of the 3 laid out problems. So yeah. So if you're going to link any of my videos that talk about Nanoweave, don't link the old video. It's from 2017. My thinking has changed. Everything on that, the thought process has evolved. If you're going to link any of those videos, link the Nanoweave Revisited video or the Making It Passive argument. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I've made the first 2 I have 4 Nanoweave videos. This will be my 5th. Maybe I have 6. I don't know. But I'm in the process, if not already, I've already unlisted and changed the descriptions in a couple that I don't feel are necessarily productive or coincide with the current thinking I have on it. So again, appreciate you linking it, but I was in this stream much later on, and I gave Cami the links to the more recent videos that I would much rather have represent the argument. So anyway, we'll move on. I just had to put that in there.
The vibe turns out. Today we're going to be discussing Nanoweave armor, guys. And I wanted to bring this up for a couple of reasons today. For one, this came up a couple of weeks ago during Commander Serious's new player experience talk stream that he did that I was a part of. In fact, I was the one that sort of shot the initial "what don't we just nerf Nanoweave" remark out, which sparked some conversation. I won't lie. Some was in support of, some was against it. Fair enough.
Now, I watched that video, that specific part that he's talking about, And I was watching the entire thing in a Discord with several of my friends, and I wasn't streaming or anything. That's usually what I would do, but for whatever reason, I was streaming in Discord, and Discord streaming is fucking weird, and I'm not a big fan of it. But anyway, when this topic came up, Cami did, like as he said, he shot it out there, and I was actually taken aback by the reaction to it. It seemed that almost everyone in the channel, I think there ended up being like 13 to 15 people in this channel. It was only supposed to be a handful, but these things always end up spiraling out of control. But the overall reaction to it that I saw was I don't think I remember anyone being in disagreement with adjusting it in some way. But the question always comes up, you either have the people that say make it passive, and then you have all the people that do the whataboutism about everything else, and then you have the people that are just outright against it. And this was like the first time I've seen one of these where I didn't outright hear any of the bullshit that I normally hear. So that was, I actually, I remarked to one of my friends in the channel, I'm like, this makes me feel better about the whole thing. Like, this is actually good. This is the first time I think we're making progress here. I think that the general sentiment, we're finally getting somewhere, and that made me feel good. So, but for what I don't want you guys to say is like maybe for the people that have no idea of like who I am, or granted I'm extremely small on YouTube. I don't stream the game on Twitch anymore or anything like that. I don't participate in the Reddit anymore. So maybe I'm sure there's a lot of people that haven't heard the argument, but what I don't want you to do is, see this Cami thing for the first time and be like, oh, Cami's so smart. He's like, this isn't a new thing, guys. He didn't come up with it out of nowhere. So don't take credit for that. All right. That's not going to happen. All right. This has been an ongoing discussion for 4 years now. And I know that these bigger content creators have bigger fish to fry, XD, I guess. I don't know. But what gets lost with these bigger content creators is they have to appeal to this mass audience, and the mass audience specifically wants certain things, right? They want weapon review videos. They want discussion about the overall meta of the game, and like you have the bullshit that Sirius does with the virtue signaling and the grandstanding on being a good person and horse shit that he goes with all the time, and pandering to the lowest common denominator. Like, I get it. These people have a certain demographic to cater to, and oftentimes the discussions about gameplay balance concerns and problems, like very specific down to the level of the stuff here, like statistics, they don't touch any of this shit at all. And I feel like I've done a decent job, like with the specific topics that I want to talk about over time. Like, I've talked about the shit that happened with the Cone of Fire stuff in 2016. I've talked about long range automatics and the damage range drop off stuff. I've talked about the balance issues with shotguns. I've talked about a bunch of stuff on the channel, but these aren't things that get picked up on by the mainstream, if I want to call it that. And so to a lot of people, maybe this is the first time they hear someone actually talk about Nanoweave. And this is one of the biggest problems is there's so many uninformed and ignorant players in this game. And I don't want to place any blame here, but I think a lot of that comes down to the big content creators that we do have for the game don't necessarily focus so much or at all, and a lot of times, the intricacies in the gameplay that goes there. Like, it's one thing to make a guide about how to play a class a specific way, or it's one thing to make a guide talking about weapon stats and the overall feel of the weapon, but it's a totally another arena and ballpark when you start discussing like philosophical gameplay balance discussion. And I feel like that's something that I feel is like kind of a niche for the game. And from time to time, I try to put my input in on that, but granted, I'm lazy and I don't fucking edit videos and all this stuff. So that has never really taken off, but I think there is an appetite for that there, and I think it would be good for the game if more people understood more about that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not what people are looking for. The people for this game are looking for, you know, new player guides, what guns, like if you stream the game, like it's the general dipshit in the Twitch directory that comes in like, what gun the best gun for TR? And just base level shit like that, which I hate answering, and it's part of the reason why I don't stream the game anymore. But anyway, we're going to continue.
It was just a throwing shit at the wall and seeing what would stick kind of remark there, not gonna lie. And I thought I thought after that, you know, maybe we best do a video on Nanoweave, but considering how many different opinions there are
Well, it's been done already.
out there about Nanoweave, how many things that, like, after I made that remark, there is a lot of conversation surrounding Nanoweave lately, and a lot of points brought up about its effects on the game, what it does good, what it does poorly, stuff like that. So I figured we'd get the community together and have a...
Again, all this stuff is not new. All of this stuff is not new, Cami. Sorry to tell you, but this has been going for a long ass time. So maybe it's, like I said before, maybe it's new for your community, but the discussions and the conversations on the philosophical part of the balance and everything and what it does to the game, that's been happening for a long time. Sorry to tell you.
Live chat about it and really sort of get some thoughts out about it. Hence why we're doing this today. Now,
and you know, the funny thing is that the arguments against the change haven't evolved or changed at all. They're still the same base dumb arguments that you hear. And I'm positive, like I said, I'm fuzzy on what happens in this video completely because I haven't watched it in about a week and a half. So I'm almost positive that you're going to hear some of that here. You're going to hear some inane nonsense.
I still am going to do that video, but I do want to sort of, want to, you know, get the community together, have this talk, and then we'll go from there. Now, I do have a Discord.
One thing I do want to compliment Cami on. I like Cami. I already did my spiel on the big content creators. Cami doesn't really, he's not one to get into any drama or anything. He stays away, which I wish most of them would. He's very, very chill, laid back guy. I like Cami in general. But I think it's very important that these big content creators for the game, you know, granted they're not necessarily that big in the grand scale of the internet and YouTube and how big other games are. But for this game, I think it's so important that you have these discussions. But the biggest thing here is that, like, a lot of these content creators, they almost need like a primer, right? Like, I feel like Cami here, I think he's got a good idea. Like, I think he understands the problem, and he just needs a little bit more like guiding along. Like, okay, here's why, here's why, here's why. Because I think when you're at this stage in understanding that there's a problem, it's very easy for you to get like sidetracked and go down the wrong road when someone brings up like some really base stupid argument that has been out there for years. And, you know, it's one thing for that person to say that to me, and I can combat it and deal with it, right? But for another person who's just entering into this discussion and is not necessarily fully thought out on where he wants to go and what he wants to do with it and how best to deal with it, that can be a real distraction. And when you have someone with as much visibility as he does, he's a lot more susceptible to that because he's got way more people watching him, way more people commenting, and it's very easy for one of these people who has no idea what they're talking about to get in there and throw the whole thing off. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. I was in the chat later on, and I warned him against, hey, don't fall for the bad arguments, man.
Chat room set up, by the way. Time to shit and eat bricks. Ayo, let's go.
But the problem there is you have to. He's not in the stage to where he understands yet maybe that something is a bad argument and something isn't. But what's important, to get back to what I was saying, it's very important for these types of discussions that they're having to continue to happen. Like, this stuff needs to continue to happen, not just with Nanoweave, but we need to talk about the foundational problems with the game that continue to be ignored by the development team. And the community and the leaders of the community need to be the voice, because the people that understand the problem and what's going on are shooed away and pushed to the side. You know, they don't want to hear what you have to say because you're critical of the game. But when you're big content creators who have notoriously, you know, stuck up for you and kissed your ass the entire development cycle, when they start raising a stink, then maybe then is when you start to see them change their practices. So that maybe that's my hope.
Start off by taking a look at some initial notes I've taken down here, right? Oh, the Nanoweave video, got it, okay. Might have a look at it. I've got some thoughts I want to quickly go over first. Alright. So, let's talk Nanoweave armor, ladies and gentlemen. Nanoweave armor. Let me zoom this in so y'all get a bit of screen there. There we go. Okay, so based on the community poll that I ran on my YouTube channel a few days ago, 13% out of, this is out of about 2,500 votes, by the way. At about 2,500 votes, 30% say nerf it out of the gate, 25% say we should be removing it from the game, and 63% say that it shouldn't be touched. Now, I know that those percentages don't equal 100%. YouTube can build an algorithm, but they can't do quick math.
Okay, so what I see from those numbers there is that basically, what he said, 2,500 people or so were polled, and 63% of them basically are clueless morons. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but the information is out there, and the problem that you have here when you have such a high percentage of people saying it shouldn't be touched is that when you're presented with something in the game that specifically and outright affects an integral core part of the game, which is the gunplay, the interaction of damage between the individual players in the gunplay is the foundational basis of your game. And when you have something in the game that directly does something or tweaks something in there that is maybe a little off, or maybe shouldn't necessarily be there, or creates problems in other areas, when that is extremely, like, blatantly obvious, you know, with maybe 5 minutes of sitting down and thinking, if you're part of that 63%, I would say that you need to get your head out of your ass. Now, those are people that are probably completely ignorant. They like the fact that Nanoweave does what it does in the game because it directly benefits them, and that's a problem. That's cool if you like it and all, but if you actually... This whole conversation is about positively affecting the overall health of the game, which has been my goal the entire time. Okay, I don't really even play the game anymore. I don't care about getting an advantage for myself. I don't care. I just know that this game has foundational problems that have been ignored for years. And I know for a fact that when your foundation is rotted, if you keep just building new shit on top of it, you're going to be in for a fucking bad day at the end of the day. Okay, so what we can't continue to do is go down this road, and this is developers and you players in the 63%. We cannot continue to go down this road where we leave shit in the game that is objectively broken and bad for the game just because it's a legacy feature. Okay? Or just because it's hard to have a conversation about it. That's exactly the attitude that gets you the game that you have right now. Because the fundamental, foundational issues of the game have been ignored for years now. Okay? Is the game any better than it was 2 years ago? No. Is the game any better than it was 4 years ago? No. And on and on and on. We don't ever get a better game. We just get more irrelevant, useless shit stacked upon foundational problems, and the foundational problems, for whatever reason, never ever get addressed. And part of this is, I always thought that this was a very low-hanging fruit demonstration, right? So this is why I picked really Nanoweave of anything, because I thought it was such a no-brainer and such low-hanging fruit that if you made a rational argument and you demonstrated your case, that any rational thinking person could look at it and say, yep, it's a problem. We should do something about it. But that has not been the case. That has not been the case so far. It's been 4 years. I'm Lassie at the well barking, and I go back to the dude, you know, sitting outside right at the front of the house reading the newspaper. I'm barking at the guy, trying to tell him that fucking Timmy's in the well, and he's like, what? They're putting up a new Walmart across the street, girl? No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay? We have a problem here. We have an extreme problem of problems like this, which is Nanoweave is the easiest, lowest hanging fruit example of this. That something foundational that negatively affects your game, and it's in your face, like a naked dude pulling his pants down and putting his ass in your face. It's right fucking there, man. And there's been dozens and dozens of people who pointed this out. And there's been dozens and dozens and dozens of threads, and there's been hundreds of conversations had. And I know that these guys, I know that the developers read the threads. I know that they read them. But why don't you do anything? I don't get it. So for you 63%, you 63% guys are exactly why the game is stale, boring, and it has no player base. Okay? That's why people don't come and stay and play your game. Because you guys want everything that sucks about the game to stay exactly the same way because it benefits you in some way, or you're completely ignorant and misinformed. Okay? That's the gist of it. So, thank you for keeping the game as terrible as it's been. Because you don't want to bother to learn the game or accept that, oh, maybe this is actually bad for the game. Like, grow up.
Maths, I get that. But in effect, 37% of the community from that community poll wants something to happen to Nanoweave, which I find interesting. Because the sentiment of the chat in Commander Sirius's stream was very much in favor of doing something to Nanoweave. So what this makes me think is that it makes me wonder one of two things. We've either got a very unique subset of Commander Sirius, of the audience within Commander Sirius's stream, which means that as a result, there's a sort of a focus group or an echo chamber in that stream at that given point in time, which is we were talking about the new player experience, right? So obviously that topic of conversation is going to cultivate a unique audience per se, right? That's just naturally going to happen. But these are some opening thoughts from myself. And I have written this like a script because I wanted to really get this down on paper. So I apologize if this comes across a bit robotic. I'll admit my opening thoughts on this slot have swayed a bit over the days since this conversation has continued. The reason I bring it up now, almost 9 years into PlanetSide 2's lifetime, is because the developers are now focusing on the new player experience. And with Nanoweave affecting time to kills as much as it does, I feel as though that has an impact as well. The new player experience has always been a tough nut to crack in the world of PlanetSide. And I've always held the belief that in some cases it's inherently flawed because it places top tier players against noobs just via the core gameplay loop. There's no fixing that. PlanetSide 2 is not an arena game, it has no MMR, so at the end of the day, the MPE is always going to be a little bit brokey. But a new player will never really have a way to guarantee a fair fight in-game just based on skill alone, and I want to make this clear. Nanoweave is not the core of that problem, and it never will be. And I don't...
Okay, so having jogged my memory on this, so Cami's making the argument here. Now, when you initially read Nanoweave is not the core of that problem, how Cami, and I'm pretty sure this is how he's framing it, is that he's creating this caricature of a new player that basically has never played an FPS game before. He goes into the idea that this person is not gonna ever hit shots anyway, so Nanoweave can't be the problem, or cannot be the core of that problem. Now, in a sense, he's right. If you take that caricature of the new player as someone who literally has 0% accuracy, and he never hits any shots on the guy anyway, that's one way to look at it. But at the same time, if you look at it at maybe a little less hyperbolic representation of that new player, is maybe they are hitting some shots. You know, they're not lighting the world on fire. You know, we're talking, probably someone, and this has been my thesis forever, is that this game doesn't attract people who play FPS games for whatever reason, and more on that later. But say you have a person who shoots a new player, in this case, who's never played an FPS game before. What kind of accuracy, like general accuracy, we won't even talk about headshots yet. What kind of general accuracy can you expect from this player? Now, if I take the hyperbolic approach that Cami takes, is they're not going to hit anything anyway. Well, maybe he's exaggerating a little bit, and they might hit 1 or 2 shots, but they're never going to hit, you know, the required, say it's just 1,000 HP target and they have a 143 damage weapon. They're never going to hit 9 shots anyway on a Nanoweave target with that weapon. But, you know, they might hit 3 or 4, right? That's not going to get you exactly to, you know, if you hit 3 or 4 shots on a guy that requires 9 to kill, yeah, you weren't going to get the kill anyway. Got it. But if you hit 7, or if you hit 6 or 7 on the non-Nanoweave target with, you know, 167s or 143s, you're going to kill them. But if they have Nanoweave, you know, you hear this forever times infinity, you know, it's just a bullet or 2. Well, when you are a new player, or you're not an FPS player, or you're bad mechanically, that 1 or 2 bullets, which it's 2 by the way in almost every case, those 2 bullets can oftentimes actually be the difference between you killing a guy or not. So outright to say that Nanoweave is not the core of that problem. Now, granted, the bigger problem I think that people have is that there's no matchmaking in the game, which you can do I can do an entire video on skill-based matchmaking anyway, which it isn't the most of these content creator guys and everything, they have like this really over idealized version of what skill-based matchmaking is, which is generally a pretty big misrepresentation of how it plays out, especially if you're actually a good player and you're playing in that kind of system. But we'll move on from that. But that's probably the overarching thing that he says is the core of that problem, is there is no skill-based matchmaking, and he rightly points out that you know, it's pointless to have that argument. It's never going to be a game that has that. But I think Nanoweave is not the core of that problem. Yeah, like he goes on to say that changing Nanoweave in some way is not a silver bullet. It's not the thing that makes the NPE so difficult. Right. It's an amalgamation of a lot of different things. But when it comes to the core interaction in your FPS game of taking a gunfight with someone and trading damage back and forth, yes, it is a key core contributor to what's going on here. And it comes up because of the skill disparity that it creates between the haves and the have-nots, which more often than not, your new players are going to be your have-nots, right? I haven't even gotten into, you know, the headshot percentage disparity or headshots at all. But yeah, it's not a silver bullet. I hate having that used. I've had that historically used against me. You know, this doesn't fix the game, you know? It doesn't fix the game. Nobody ever said it outright fixes everything wrong with the game. Okay? That's a fucking straw man. All right? Stop doing it. It's a problem that's been identified and has to be dealt with, okay? Once we deal with it, we move on to the next one. No one has ever said that this will fix everything in the game and everything that's wrong with the new player experience and all this other shit. No one is saying that. No one has ever said that, so stop saying it. Okay? And he's going to get into if Nanoweave armor unnecessarily furthers the gap between new and high-tier players. We already know, spoiler alert, guys, the answer is yes, okay? So we're going to go into more of him talking about it.
Believe that any fixes to Nanoweave will be a silver bullet. The reason I bring the conversation to the table here today is not because I believe yeeting Nanoweave into the nearest available sun is going to be that silver bullet. It's not the thing that makes the MPE so difficult. The reason I bring it up today is to work out if Nanoweave armor unnecessarily increases or furthers the skill gap between a new and a high player without it needing, like, does that need to exist? Is essentially my opening remark here. Or the question that I want to pit this conversation with today.
And what he's talking about is the The second core problem with Nanoweave that I have in my other videos, yes, it unnecessarily furthers the skill gap. Like, period.
Now, as we all know, Nanoweave armor gives you a 20% reduction to a lot of direct fire damage that you can get in the game for body shots. It doesn't affect headshots. We already know this. It used to provide, I think it was a base 250 health pool buff. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 250 health. It gave you that additional health as part of a buffer per se. They changed it to a 20%.
But they changed it because a bunch of low ability snipers, the guys that sit in the middle of nowhere and wait for the guy on the vehicle terminal or something, they just sit there and jerk off and wait for somebody to stand still, and they were headshotting them, and because they had the health bonus, the people that they were headshotting, that they worked so hard to get this headshot kill on the guy, that people were surviving. Oh no, I can't get a one-hit kill in a game with my invisible sniper man that's been hiding for 20. Oh god, the humanity. So naturally, the sniper community in every game is absolute toxic trash cancer. So they were up in arms and cried and cried and cried and cried until the development team decided that, you know what? That's fine. We're going to change Nanoweave, and we're going to make it so that you're going to get your one-shot headshot because you deserve it, god darn it. All right? And we're going to make we're going to change Nanoweave so it gives you a 20% reduction to small arms, but it ignores headshots. So all these lame, shitty 1 APM sniper players can continue to get their 0 skill one-hit headshots because they're AFK waiting for someone to stand still. Perfect game design. Of course, as you can see, the developers for this game, even back in the day, like Higby and all that, Higby gets a ton of smoke blown up his ass and all this, but because he actually played the game and understood kind of sort of like what was going on. But at the end of the day, Higby was just as dumb as anybody else that has been in that position. Okay, stop blowing smoke up Higby's ass. He was just as dumb and just as responsible for the problems that we have in the game now as they were then. Okay, so there you have it.
Reduction in.
Also, one of the big problems was no one thought this through. To me, no one on the team in the room was like, well, what happens between the disparity between headshots and non-headshots? Now, at the time, the argument might have been, well, it makes getting headshots more skilled. It rewards skill more, okay? But they didn't necessarily think about how awful the players were that played their game and what effect it would have on it down the road. Of course, because there was no forward thinking whatsoever at all in PlanetSide 2 in the year 2013 or 2014. It was on to it's OMFG. Now we're moving on to porting the game to PlanetSide or PlayStation 4 for no fucking reason, and then we're working on construction, and then all those people were fucking gone. All right, so that was the thinking back then. There was no forward thinking at all.
Damage once they worked out that infiltrator headshots were no longer dealing any sort of hit. The flow-on effect is that while headshots statistically deal 2 times damage in the game, they effectively deal a slightly higher damage multiplier when a target runs Nanoweave armor and they get headshotted because they're bypassing the effect that Nanoweave armor has, where body shots would not. So effectively, I don't know the exact math, but I think it's around about a 2.5%, 2.5 times headshot multiplier or something like that. I could be wrong though.
And that is only a thing because a 20% reduction to body damage exists in your game.
With newer players being less likely to hit headshots consistently, the keyword there being consistently, the theoretical skill gap grows a bit because the player who can go for those headshots, because a player who can go on for those headshots more so, I haven't finished my own sentence there. Fuck, this is scuffed. Sheesh, goddamn. All right. Basically, the player who can hit those headshots consistently versus a player who cannot more so get what would get they get more than what the original 2 times headshot multiplier is. It on paper furthers the skill gap where it doesn't need to be furthered. 2 times headshot multiplier in any first-person shooter game you play is a perfect amount of damage multiplier for skill. It's the way it is. Headshot multiplier.
Yes, it's fine. A 2 times headshot multiplier is basically the gold standard. right? You have some games that go like to 1.8, some weird stuff like that. But 2.0 is fine for this game. It works great. All right. 2.5 is excessive. And the only reason the 2.5 comes into play is because of the 20% reduction to small arms.
Applies in games like this, I don't think need to be touched. I don't think the answer here is nerfing headshots. So considering that new players are again less likely to have a chance of successfully hitting headshots consistently while they learn weapon mechanics such as recoil, bursting, and cone of fire, again, the skill gap.
Okay, I wanna shit pick here for a minute. Okay, so you have recoil, which is the weapon's characteristics and how it's gonna move when you're firing. Bursting and cone of fire. Okay, the second and the third things are the same thing. The reason that you're bursting is to limit the aggression of the bloom of your weapon. So the reason you burst is to keep your cone, you know, at a manageable level for you to be able to hit the target depending on what range you're fighting at. So to separate those things into three distinct categories is wrong. So the second two are the exact same thing. You burst because of the cone of fire, all right? So once you learn the recoil and you learn the cone of fire of your weapon. So when you're firing your gun, you'll see that, and for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe it's because these people play on these graphic settings where you can't fucking see anything, but they complain that, you know, they don't understand why they're not hitting. And all these guys just hold mouse 1, but I don't know what this fascination, I don't really understand what games these people are coming from where they just hold mouse 1 the entire time, because I play or have played almost every single FPS game that there has been in the last, since 2010 or so. And I can barely think of a game that doesn't have some form of spread or spread to recoil conversion or something like that. Maybe there's the shitty Battlefront games that don't have any spread. But for whatever reason, this kind of lends credibility, I think, to my thesis that the people that come to this game and are trying to learn the gunplay have never played, they're not FPS players. They've never played another FPS. Because in almost every, and maybe this is just ignorance on their part, is that they go play other FPS games and they don't actually understand what's happening with their weapon. Maybe this puts me in the minority, but when I play a new FPS game, I try to understand what is happening with my weapon. Because if I can understand what is happening with my weapon and what is influencing where my bullets go, and that I can adapt my gameplay in terms of what mechanical actions I'm doing to maximize the potential accuracy of whatever I'm trying to do. Maybe that puts me in the minority. But for everyone that I know and I play with, that's generally what we get into. But these people, I think, just come in with the assumption that they can walk in and mouse 1 everywhere. And like I said, this is just a shit pick, but these two are essentially the same thing. You do this because of that one. And then this one is kind of, you know, its own separate thing. But anyway, we'll continue.
Expands quite a little bit. The effect of Nanoweave armor in this example is limited if the general accuracy of the new player is bad, however. Now, what I mean by that is if a player can't aim for body shots in the first place, and they miss all of their shots, they don't, you know, if they don't hit body shots in the first place, then that's a different story. No amount of changes to Nanoweave will fix that. And I'm not bringing up this topic to save little...
And it's right to ignore, like, it's kind of pointless to even bring this up at all, because obviously it doesn't matter. Nanoweave doesn't matter if the person can't hit a shot at all. It's irrelevant, right? It's completely irrelevant. So I'm not sure why he brings this up at all, as if someone would bring this up. Yeah, this is kind of a pointless area.
Little Timmy who can't hit the broadside of a barn from the inside on his grandma's 15-year-old shitshow of a Dell tower. I want to make that clear.
Has on the people that actually land bullets in the game.
I don't want, you know, to introduce aim assist. I don't think we need to nerf skill per se, and I don't think, you know, little Timmy who can't hit anything because he's only just picked up a mouse and keyboard for the first time should be pandered to. Like, this is clearly a game for first-person shooter players who at least know what they're doing.
See, that's a great... I love that attitude. Fucking A+ #1, Cami. Good fucking job. I wish that is the exact attitude to have. You know, I wish more people would seriously buy into that. But you know, you have some other big content creators who will go out of their way to make every excuse under the sun for why someone can't get better at the game. But it's good to see. It's very good to see. Props for that.
And at least know, like, and when I say that, I mean at least know what they're doing to the point where they can hit body shots, right? So the effective widening of the skill gap is entirely based on the prospect that a player can at least hit a target enough to score a kill via regular shots. Okay. I know in the past there's been talk about nerfing headshots and stuff like that. And there's only really one weapon in the game that I want to see.
Hey guys, guess what? I have a video on the prospect of nerfing headshots in PlanetSide 2. And guess who the original idea basically comes from? You'll never guess who. But yeah, I did a video on that a while back and why it's fucking stupid. But yeah, go find that video.
Headshots get toned down on a lot or yeeted completely, and that's the Cobalt. I'll be real. That's the only weapon I would like to see headshots get removed from. But I don't think...
Why do vehicles have headshot multipliers, by the way? Can anyone give me a good reason for that? Anyone? Why does a Cobalt need a headshot multiplier? Hello?
Look, I don't want to see skilled gameplay take a hit. Skilled gameplay needs to remain a factor in the game, and that's all I have to say there. So, again, the whole reason I bring this up today is to simply discuss the element of headshots and the element of widening that skill gap between an average player and a top tier player, one who can at least consistently hit body shots to go for kills, and one that cannot. Right? Game's rock eating those confirmed cheese. Fucking hell. Anyway, another big issue for me with Nanoweave right now is you're immediately punished as a new player if you do not buy it out of the gate, right? Personally, I'm really not a fan of people's investments being punished from a competitive standpoint if they choose the wrong upgrade path. I know there will always be more meta and higher skill ceiling loadout options out there, but the Nanoweave armor is such a broad stroke in the game right now. PlanetSide is, after all, a game built on side grade meta. It's all about everything having an element that makes it successful in combat, right? In the world of suit slots, the side grade of running Nanoweave armor over other suit slots is you don't get faster shield regen or an extra grenade, you know, passive buffs, like a couple of buffs here and there that are situational. But all of the other suit slots in the game are immediately compared against Nanoweave because it's the universal effective option, which is why I think in the variety department it's a big old problem. It kind of yeets a lot of what we can do with this out of the way.
And this is normally where people come into the argument and they start. This is like the walking in at the ground floor, right? You're getting your foot in the door. The suit slot disparity is getting your foot in the door to understanding the problem. But then only then, once you get your foot in the door and you start delving deeper, you know, do you see, oh shit, this is kind of bad for the game in a couple other ways that I didn't really notice. But I said before, like, even the most basic, like even the most casual players understand from a suit slot loadout perspective, most of them anyway. You still have the people that tell you, basically broadcast that they're ignorant just by saying, well, I know all about Nanoweave and I don't run it anyway because I don't need it. Okay, well, that's your choice to make, but you're effectively making yourself worse in almost every other way because you are playing an FPS game after all. So yeah, good job. Congratulations on admitting that you're stupid.
Players shouldn't be punished immediately for making the wrong choice. Now I'll admit, wrong choices can be made. Wrong choices can be purchased into in this game. Like, if you throw a 3.4x GD7F scope, like a 3.4x optic.
I get what he's saying here, but the cost to buy in for the 20% reduction to small arms is it's level 1 of Nanoweave. Okay, you get that for free on your heavy assault, right? But it is literally the level 1 version of Nanoweave for everything else. So there's not really a big like cost here. What is it? One cert or something? I don't remember what it is. But the cost to buy into that power is not really there. Like people used to get back before it was, you know, when you had to get level 5 of it to get the full, like that's kind of weird. But like the way that they have it now, where it's just the first point gives you the small arms, like who gives a shit about level, like my discussion on this has never ever been about Nanoweave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is about Nanoweave level 1. That is it. I don't care about level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. You can do whatever the fuck you want with those levels. I don't care whatsoever. The 20% to small arms specifically, level 1 on Nanoweave is the bugaboo, is the problem. You can get rid of that and do whatever the fuck else you want with the entire suit slot. I don't care. It's just that one. And it being the first one, and I think it only costs like 1 or fucking 10 certs, or I don't know. It's extremely cheap. So it's not like the cost to get into it. That would probably be more of a problem if the cost to buy into that power was more. So at least from that perspective, it's not completely horrible. That it is very cheap and easy to get into, but it still sucks for the game.
On a GD7F, that's a problem. That's a problem. But Nanoweave is a bit more of a core problem in that regard, I agree. But weapon-wise, certain weapons are straight better than everything else, like GD7F. Yes and no, Idiot. Like, for a high-skill player like yourself, who can manage recoil of the GD7F and shit like that, yes, it is a much better weapon and more consistent overall. I will agree with that. But for different player levels, there are side grades. 100%. Like the ACX-11, for example. Like, I admit, I know what you're saying. I'm talking, like, and this is why I want to get as many people in as possible. I want to get as many opinions as possible from, you know, the high skill community like yourself and from your lower skill community, because they're all going to have different opinions on this, and all of that should be heard, I think, right? We can't, yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, I also want to go over some quick current effects on weapon damage tiers from what Nanoweave does. So keeping in mind that Nanoweave has a 20% decrease on bullet to on damage across the board. What you've essentially got here is this is what the damage looks, this is what the damage, you know, this is what the damage tiers look like after you apply Nanoweave across the board, which this I actually found interesting. And I actually think I've got my math wrong there. Is that a 13 shot kill or is it a... Give me a sec, I need to do the quick math. 1,000 divided by... no, times... I am 1,000 times 0.8. No, that's not what I wanted. 1,000 divided by 80. There we go. Yeah, it is a 13 shot kill. Okay, good. Alright, got it. Sorry, guys. So yeah, this is effectively the damage tier list you're looking at after you apply Nanoweave. As you can see, a lot of remarks I've been seeing lately about high damage weapons getting nerfed the most. True or not, but I'll go over some theoretical weapon time to kills after we apply this nerf as well to see exactly how badly they're affected. Because one thing we have to keep in mind, guys, I hear this argued a lot, that Nanoweave armor, or sorry, the game is balanced around Nanoweave armor. Not entirely true.
Not true at all. So the game's gunplay and health values were taken straight from Battlefield Bad Company too. There's charts that you can look at, and it's multiplied everything by 10, because in a Battlefield game, a standard soldier has 100 HP. So the damage tiers in that game, you had the 14.3 max damage weapons, you had the 16.7 max damage weapons, you had the 12.5 max damage weapons. So you guys see, does this start to sound a little bit familiar here on a 100 damage target? Now, what if you made the 14.3 damage weapon on a 100 HP target? What if you just made it 143 damage on a 1000 HP target? Holy shit. Holy shit, we've just solved it. We've just created PlanetSide 2's gunplay model. And all we did was move the decimal place over one from a Battlefield Bad Company 2 gunplay. Isn't that crazy? Wow, we're so smart and ingenious. Crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. But guess what? 100 HP is the base value. 100 HP was the base value in Battlefield Bad Company, and 1000 HP is a full health player in PlanetSide 2. Okay, granted you have the 500 shields to 500 health thing, but effectively 500 1000 HP. Okay, so the weapons, if we're gonna go off the other game, which this game's gunplay is ripped straight from, are based on a 100 damage or 100 HP player. Okay, so 14.3 was mathed out, and that's what they wanted for the values for the time to kill and the bullet to kill on a 100 HP player. Okay, so all this nonsense of these people that are coming in and be like, well, all the guns in the game are balanced around Nanoweave. That is objectively and clearly not the case. It is so. What is it? Is it ignorant to say that? It is asinine to say that. Just outright. It's not. And you get further into this by when you suggest to people that, or when they suggest to you that the game and the weapon design would have to be rebalanced in some radical way if we removed Nanoweave, you're fucking wrong, man. You don't know what you're talking about. Why would I have to rebalance the weapon design and damage in my game if my gun that's 143 damage is doing a 7-shot kill on a 1000 HP target? What's the fucking issue? This is what it was designed to do. It was not designed to be a 114 damage weapon and kill in 9 bullets. So all this nonsense about having to redesign the entire gunplay and everything and modify the stuff, I see this shit all the time. It's complete bullshit. You're talking out of your ass and you don't know what you're talking about. It's fucking fake news. Stop saying this ignorant shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Or these people that say, oh, we're going to have a PTS, to test this out. No, you don't. It's already happening on live. Take random 2 players that don't have Nanoweave equipped, and they're playing the base game. It already happens on live all day, all the time, in a million different scenarios. It's already there. And you know what? The people don't notice any difference. If you stealth changed this and took Nanoweave out of the game tonight, and you had people tomorrow playing the game, 99% of these people would have no fucking clue that you even took it out of the game. They would have no idea. If you put a placebo Nanoweave there, and it didn't actually give the 20% reduction, it just did nothing, it did 0. If you put a placebo in there, they would have no idea. So this whole idea that's being pushed by these people, that the game feels drastically different, you have to rebalance a bunch of shit, it's horse shit. It's fake news. Stop saying this.
Not entirely true. Weapon design and weapon damage values and weapon time to kills were all designed and were balanced before Nanoweave armor was in this form of the game, right? They were all part of the... I'm going to quickly get out an Excel spreadsheet here for damage thresholds. Now, I'll admit it's a bit rudimentary nowadays. It doesn't take into consideration stuff like, like travel time and stuff like that, but this is the one done by Iridar a very long time ago, and it's what I use all the time. So, okay, I'll put in the basic, so this is the basic, this here is the basic damage model of the Gauss Saw here. The Gauss Saw here, 200 damage at 10, 167 at, whatever the minimum damage rate is, I don't care, at 500 rounds per minute. DPS,
Here, I'm going to explain something to you guys, too, that don't understand or don't have zero perspective on FPS games outside of PlanetSide 2, because this is either the only FPS game you've ever played, or you refuse to play anything else, and you're super casual and everything else. Let's look up here at time to kill at max damage range. So this is for the Gauss Saw, right? A .48 is very rapidly approaching, what do we got here? It's very rapidly approaching half a second. Now, if you had any idea of damage values on weapons in other games and how that works, you would understand that almost this equates to basically almost a half a second. So 0.48 of a second. This is 480 milliseconds, essentially. So you're almost at half a second, right? And I don't think you guys understand, or specifically you guys that don't play FPS games and have zero perspective outside of this game, you may think that this number, a lot of people when they see a 480 milliseconds or half of a second, they think, oh my God, that TTK is so fucking fast. It's insane. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Since you guys have no perspective on damage models in other FPS games and everything, you would know that when you're approaching 500 milliseconds or 600 milliseconds or somewhere in that range, you're on the long end of the time to kill continuum here. Like you're on the long end. So if that shocks you, then you need to get a little bit more perspective, okay? So the time to kill at minimum damage range. So this is, what's the minimum damage? 167, right? So now you're looking at 600 milliseconds. What the hell is this second? I don't know what. Oh, so this is for Nanoweave, this here and this here. So we have non-Nanoweave and Nanoweave. So with a Nanoweave target, you're almost at 720 milliseconds for body shots. That is an eternity in FPS games. And if that seems funky to you and weird for me to say that is a long time or that is long, then you really need to get out there and do some digging and learn some shit about damage models in FPS games. Okay? Look at this. 840 mils. This is almost a full second, which is an eternity in an FPS game. It's crazy. But yeah, I thought it would be interesting to for some of you guys that have no clue what's going on these pages and you just like start drooling and like this is very enlightening, okay, to people who understand what's going on. Because these values that you see, if you have any perspective and no values from other games, you know immediately. You don't even need to see the time values. The bullet to kill values will tell you almost right away, okay? This game has almost 50% longer time to kill than almost any other FPS game. And in some instances, that's good, and in some instances, it's bad. But that's a topic for another time. And we might actually even get to it here.
Equals a time to kill of 0.48 seconds or 0.6 seconds at theoretical damage ranges. Now, this is assuming 100% accuracy at those ranges, and it also assumes that no headshots, no damage modifiers are taken into play. Let's keep in mind this one thing here. That's 0.48 second time to kill. That is pretty much a top tier time to kill. And it's what most weapons in the game that are designed around being more aggressive, typically your best in class weapons hit around a 0.48 theoretically. And it's how I sort of judge how aggressive a weapon can be. If we go ahead and throw that down with Nanoweave armor attached and go 160, boom. Immediately that throws the weapon down to a 0.772 second time to kill. Now, admittingly, if I was to do that with any other weapon in the game that shared that damage time to kill, you would potentially find yourself in the same boat. But it's just worth taking a look at. Now, keeping in mind, so say a player with Gosaw hits all body shots right there, and they had Nanoweave armor equipped, 0.72 second time to kill. Or the enemy had Nanoweave armor equipped. But if, say, you throw that up to 400 damage for double headshot damage, 0.24. That's a 0.5 of a second time to kill difference, as opposed to only being a 0.2 of a second time to kill difference. So that's worth considering. Now, yeah, so that's sort of where I leave off here on that just part of the discussion. And which is why I want to bring in the community now and start talking about it on the Discord. So if you're on Discord, guys, please come and jump into the chat. I want to get some people in here, get some community discussion going. Reducing time to kill leads to more defensive gameplay because it makes pushing harder. I will. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Isn't Rel going to nerf the saw, or is that just a rumor? Nothing has been confirmed officially. I mean, I don't know if he was memeing or not in Shock's stream, but he was talking about it. Yeah, it's a rumor, but who knows? Maybe he will. I mean, the saw is ridiculously powerful as it is right now, especially at longer ranges. So let's talk about it. And there's a bunch of additional points I want to bring up in regards, like, because thanks especially to Gnidiot and Saint Celestine, I think it was, over on Reddit, who punched out a bunch of things that Nanoweave armor affect in the game, and we're going to go over those shortly as well. But let's quickly bring in some community members. Guys, if you want to come join in, you're more than welcome to. All right then. Alrighty then, so guys, welcome. Hope you're all doing very, very well. We'll start off with Glanshon, I guess. Glanshon, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Glanshon. I'm a small content creator for PlanetSide 2 on the YouTubes.
Good man. Bloxy, you here? Bloxer, he might be AFK.
Sure, I'm here. I'm just dealing with audio issues. Your voice is too loud.
Fair enough. All right. So yeah, in regards to Nanoweave armor, Glanshon, any opening thoughts from yourself, mate?
Personally, I think it would be good to get it removed, but I think worst case scenario, touched on this in the chat a little bit earlier, it would introduce new metas, such as, I think, I forget what it's called, like the Flak Armor suit slot would just immediately take over. Everybody would run Flak Armor for the reduced explosive splash damage.
I guess big question there, is that a bad thing with the amount of explosive spam that is in the game? And, you know, we know not many people like hash and air to ground spam and stuff like that.
Exactly. This is the absolutely correct response to the Flak Armor. So what you'll have here is you have a bunch of people who do a bunch of whataboutism when it comes to changing Nanoweave or removing it. And one of the first things they go to, I think the original person I saw tried to use this was the moron OP Shax, whatever the fuck his dumbass name is. But when someone tells you, when someone has a problem, so I believe his original framing of it was, well, if you nerf Nanoweave, then Flak Armor will be overpowered. Now, I might be oversimplifying it, but I don't think I am, because he has said stupid things like that. And I think that is specifically the stupid I made. Now, when someone tells you that Flak Armor will be overpowered if Nanoweave gets removed, that should scream out to you right off the bat that they don't understand at all why Nanoweave is bad in the first place. Because they are conflating the two things. You know, just because a lot of people use something doesn't necessarily mean it's overpowered. You know, when you look and break down and critically examine the things and the discussion around Nanoweave, here's what you can't do with Flak Armor. You can't sit here and have the discussion on Flak Armor and how it affects the core gunplay of your game to a point that it makes, you know, it does irreparable damage to your gunplay. Having a bunch more people with Flak doesn't do anything horrible to your game. In fact, it's more of a bastion against the cancer shit that is in the game, okay? So for Flak Armor, man, like, Flak Armor, bringing up Flak Armor is the dumbest thing you can do. And it screams out that you don't understand. All right? And it comes from people who are desperately flailing for excuses not to change or remove Nanoweave. Okay, who cares? And Cami has the right opinion here. Or he's of the right mind here. Okay? The Flak Armor becoming more prevalent inside the game and inside people's loadouts is a net positive for the game and its players. Like, 100%. The explosive weapon spam in the game is exclusively of the extremely low skill random luck variety. Okay, it's not the same with small arms. Having more resistance to this is already an option, but is unfortunately outweighed by the Albatross that is current 20% reduction of small arms. A Nanoweave change leading to an influx of people being able to equip Flak Armor full-time is a net benefit to every player in the game, except for the terrible players who exclusively rely on cancer vehicle spam or extremely low-effort, zero-ability infantry playstyles. Okay? It's a net win for everybody in the game, except awful players, if Flak Armor is more prevalent. Great. It's a great thing. So anytime anyone tries to bring up the Flak Armor thing, like, what's your point, man? Okay, are you going to, is it whataboutism? Are they trying to deflect away from having the conversation about Nanoweave because they don't understand it and just want to move on? Or are they stuck in the camp of people that think, like, the suit slot variety is the only problem that there is? And if it happens that a bunch of people are using a suit slot, that automatically means it's overpowered. Like, they're both come from someone who can't think.
Like, is that a good thing? It might be.
It could be. I mean, I know I would run it all the time because I'm always down to splash damage. But, like, I'd like to just see it more balanced so that, you know, if I want to run Grenade Bandolier as a medic, I'm not at an immediate disadvantage with the amount of damage I receive because of the other slot.
Well, that's the point, man. That's the trade-off, okay? That's the point of having options in a game. You're presented with a palette of options, right? And picking this one option here precludes me from having the advantage of this one here. It's not complicated. It's part of making choices and is integral to any video game. Any developer could tell you this. That the person having options in the game, you make a choice, you don't get the advantages of the other choice. Now, when you start to see shit in games where you make a choice here, but you're also reaping the advantage of something that you don't have already because of the choice you're making here, then you have a problem. Okay? So I don't really give a shit that you want to run Grenade Bandolier but don't want to lose Flak Armor. Oh well, too bad. Figure it out, okay? By the way, Grenade Bandolier shouldn't be in the fucking game in the first place. No tool or item that lets you hold 4 fucking grenades should be in a game with unlimited players. It makes no sense.
That's the thing. It's like you see a lot of what it does do in particular is it does see a lot of you know, it does universally affect all time to kills to be slower overall. And I will admit, I want to make one thing clear here, chat. If we nerf Nanoweave armor, Symbiote goes as well. I'm just gonna put that out right.
Okay, and this obviously shouldn't have to be stated. Like, but the problem here with stupid people is if you don't break it down Barney style for them, then they run wild. So obviously Symbiote would get changed or removed. Okay, now the thought process, it would have to be reworked. Okay, so what you guys do here is you key in on, it's either if Nanoweave gets nerfed, I'll just use Symbiote. But you're stupid because you don't understand what we're talking about. We're specifically talking about the 20% reduction to small arms, which happens to exist in level 1 of Nanoweave and in Symbiote somewhere, right? Obviously, if we've identified the problem with Nanoweave and we're going to change it, then yeah, Symbiote is going to get changed too, dumbass. Clearly. Like, just please think for 5 seconds. Like, I don't want to get pissed off, right? But you guys are so dumb sometimes that it's amazing to me that how you manage. If your body didn't breathe on its own, you would die. Because you would forget to breathe because you're so stupid. Obviously, Symbiote gets changed too.
Right now. If you nerf one, the other's got to go too. You can't have double standards. I should have put this into my initial thoughts as well. Nanoweave, like if you
This is the problem too. When you don't, this is why, Cami, you have to be specific when you're talking about the problem. Okay, I mentioned Nanoweave in the title of my videos, you know, because most people understand that. That's why I don't title my videos 20% resistance to small arms. But almost everything I say inside the video that's pertaining to the problem is identified with 20% resistance to small arms. You will notice that as a pattern that I do for this specific reason. Because if you are not specific, then people get easily confused because they're stupid.
If you nerf Nanoweave armor and then keep the damage reduction available to veterans who have symbiote, that makes it even worse. That makes it even worse. So can't have one and, you know, lose the other. They've both.
And obviously this should go without saying, but we have a big contingency. 63% of our community apparently is non-thinking.
Gotta go.
Yeah, my statement was based on the idea that symbiote would get removed with Nanoweave because it's the same thing essentially.
Yeah, and considering it's an implant and people grinded for it, invest a lot of ISO into it, I think you would have to very, very much go down the line of, you know, you'd really have to adjust it per se, as opposed to removing it. But anyway, that's later down the line. Blocks, or any thoughts from yourself?
I'm on the road of nerfing Nanoweave with the shields, affecting shields. Basically, because if you're getting resistances to your armor, I'm thinking, why not reduce the shields, like the shield capacity or the recharge rate for them? And if symbiote doesn't bypass.
Okay, this guy is a perfect example of he's way overthinking something that's very simple, okay? And number one, I can barely understand what the fuck this guy's saying because he's having some sort of, like, mental breakdown while he's trying to break down what he's trying to say. But I think he's trying to move the resistance to shields or have some kind of... It's hard to understand what he's trying to say. Like, this is like the third time I've heard it, and I still don't understand what the fuck this guy's trying to say.
Shield?
But this is the exact person that tries to respond and puts this junk out in the community that just muddies up the waters. And I fucking hate listening to this stuff.
Make it so.
So you're saying just like create a pass by per se, like make it only affect one aspect of the health, or you talking about cancelling it out per se with effective HP?
I'm basically going off of like shields for a Nanoweave. Basically, I'm going off that trade-off. You can get more resistance in return. Basically,
okay, dude. Here's what you don't understand: the resistance is the core problem in the first place. So you're trying to keep the thing that we're trying to get rid of in some way. No, you're missing the point completely. The entire point here is to remove the resistances. That's the point.
You
exchange shields for resistances and symbiote, since it's like standard parasitic symbiosis is within the body, it's like it makes more sense if it bypasses shields.
Right.
So you can tell Cami doesn't even know what the fuck this guy's trying to say.
Right, okay.
He's just trying to move on here. It's okay. I don't understand what the fuck he's trying to say either. This is a problem too, where you have these big groups of random people that come on and talk. Is that you're gonna have guys like this have no fucking clue what they're talking about, and you're just muddying the waters and giving a platform to people who are clueless. Just stop doing this.
I sort of get what you're saying. Sort of, yep.
You don't have to lie to be nice. Just.
Oh, Gan's in here. All right, I want to get Gan in because
hey, good.
Gan is gonna have some thoughts to share here. What up, bitch? I don't think he was ready to be called in here.
Also, I might also say I may appear like my mic is on, but I may not have my mic enabled because my headphones has a mute button.
Nah, you're all good, boss man. Yeah, I don't think Gan was ready to get pulled in here. I think he's just here.
Yikes.
Chilling. That's all good. So yeah, in regards to,
Yeah, sorry.
Socially, this is the problem when you give platforms to socially awkward people. Is it just muddies the waters, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, hey buddy, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
That's the way. So, I know you've got a big old list of things, and I promise you we'll get there. I think the I think the big thing you brought up here, I think just is most interesting in chat, is that the game is balanced around Nanoweave from Battleflow reason as opposed to mechanics. And I guess I would argue that that's sort of, instead of it being balanced around that per se, that's just how the meta has evolved over the time, I think. Like,
So what he's saying is that the Battleflow, in terms of how aggressive or passive people are, is based on Nanoweave being in the game. Well, from the outset, you're fucking wrong, okay? And I've already explained in this video where the damage model and the time to kill model comes from. And it's balanced around a game that has 24 max players or 32 max players. Not 96 plus, not 48 plus, not something like that. So right off the bat, you're outright fucking wrong, okay? It has nothing to do, Nanoweave has nothing to do with Battleflow or anything. And like I said before, if you took away Nanoweave tonight and didn't say anything and did a stealth patch somehow and you hit it from the launcher or some shit, right? And you let everybody log in and play tomorrow, they would play in exactly the same manner that they're playing today, and they would know there would be no difference in how they play. Okay? Because you know why? Because that already takes place on live servers. There's tons of people that aren't running Nanoweave against other people that just so happen to not be running Nanoweave, because they're the kind of people that are cool just because they're different, right? And guess what? They don't notice a fucking difference, and if you were watching it, you wouldn't fucking notice a difference either. So, end of this would massively change the game to be more passive. It's just not the case. That the time to kill is not so drastically changed from 9 bullets to 7 bullets, or 8 bullets to 7 bullets. Or I'm sorry, 8 bullets to 6 bullets, or 10 bullets to 8 bullets. The time to kill is not so drastically changed that you would see a discernible playstyle change. It's not the case.
like, it's not exactly a mechanical balance thing, it's just how the community's reacted to that, I guess.
I think it's more so, if you look at other FPS games with faster time to kills, it's just a pattern reflected in them. Like, the faster your time to kill is, it enables more passive play, especially if there's not a big difference between headshots and body shots, because there's less outplay potential. Like, it's much easier to hold an angle than it is to really peek it.
I don't know what fast time to kill games you're playing there, bud, but generally, if you're holding an angle in a fast time to kill game, you're going to die to peeker's advantage. Okay, I don't know if you know what that is, but I play one of the fastest time to kill shooters there is in Siege, and it's every gun in the game is a one-shot headshot kill. And due to the wonders of networking, do you know what happens when you hold an angle in that game? Oh, you get blown off the video game because of innate peeker's advantage over a network. So the whole thing about this whole discussion on people play more passively when the time to kill is much faster. The worst players, I think, you might have a case here. Some people do play that way. But the best players in low time to kill games play more aggressively. And you'll see that across the spectrum. So in extremely fast time to kill games, the best players and really good players play in a very aggressive manner because, as he said, there's no outplay. Yeah, well, there's also no outplay in a network condition, too, with a fast time to kill because you are constantly striving to get a peeker's advantage on someone. Okay, so when you have peeker's advantage, I can't believe, like, you're leaving out the entire networked aspect of FPS video games. So if you're playing a low time to kill shooter game, getting peeker's advantage is one of your primary goals in every single gunfight that you have. And you know how you don't get peeker's advantage in fast time to kill video games and FPS games is by sitting with your thumb up your ass in a corner. Okay, this is completely backwards. And of course, this is what a guy who logs in and plays PlanetSide 8 hours a day. This is perspective on FPS games, right? And like I said, with the aggressive players, it also works out for aggressive players in the longer time to kill games too, like PlanetSide. So one of the staples of AC players back in the day was we played as aggressively as possible because you had it took more bullets to kill you. And this game has a shit lag networked mess. So yeah, you did get a sizable advantage when you're peeking someone. And they were never going to be able to kill you due to how much HP you had, the disparity between headshots and body shots, and the fact that there's networked peeker's advantage. So almost never does it benefit you in an FPS game with just how the network works to sit and be a passive shitter and do nothing. This argument is trash. Like you have it completely backwards. I don't know what fast time to kill video game you're playing where maybe like you're laying prone or hiding in a corner somewhere. If there's any information on you, like which is the entire point of playing the game, like learning where someone is and knowing where someone is, if there's any information on you, that doesn't work. And all these games have shitty mechanics that give information where you are. Like that may work if you're talking to like a 6-year-old on a controller or something, and that's the only way they can get kills. But to espouse that as being the most beneficial way to play in a fast time to kill scenario is just dumb. It's not true.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And I guess like, you know, you look at games like, you know, I guess Call of Duty that have ridiculously quick time to kills. Like, you know, I think we all understand that in this current game right now, if you get flanked, there is a chance that if you have a tanky build, you can make a quick turnaround and you can immediately start engaging somebody to try and, you know, turn that engagement back in favor. I know I've done that before in the past.
Okay, so what Cami just said completely refutes what this other guy just said about low time to kill games. So Cami's using the example of PlanetSide 2, which is a longer time to kill shooter game. And in a longer time to kill shooter game, your outplay is basically your health and the amount of time it takes for someone to exert their, you know, their damage potential on you, right? But say you are not playing PlanetSide and you are now playing a fast time to kill shooter game. Say instead of requiring 9 bullets to kill, this game only requires you to get 3 bullets to kill. Now, who's the benefactor in this scenario? The person who is aggressively playing and flanking, like in the situation that's offered. The guy that flanks with the damage model to kill you in 3 bullets is, of course, at the advantage. Because you're not even going to be able to react to his gunfire before you're dead. And probably the guy next to you can't either. So the entire notion that you are somehow, you benefit by playing passive in a fast time to kill shooter situation, it's just bunk.